Hi there, I'm Karen Dunn of KMD Productions. From the equipment manufacturers to the engineers to the business people behind the scenes. Over the years, every member of the pro audio corner of the music industry have become family to me, and it's my job to bring the whole eclectic crew together. Each episode, I'll introduce you to one of these characters and open a window into my world of creating community in pro audio. Thanks for tuning in to One and Done. Today, I'm talking to Joe Lamond, the president and CEO of NAMM. First, I want to start and talk about your motorcycle habit. So how'd you get into motorcycles? And what do you have?
Yeah. You could say I've been a lifelong motorcyclist. I had, we rode mini bikes growing up. And when I was 17 in high school, I bought my first official motorcycle, a Yamaha 250 Enduro. 3 weeks later, I promptly got hit by a 78-year-old lady named Lillian Radzwan while leaving a party and going to my bartending job when I was a senior in high school. Because in New York, you could legally work in bars at 18, which is what I did. So, and then there's a little bit of a gap between that and then the, usual age of a midlife crisis, I think, is somewhere in the mid to late 40s. And so that's when I revisited that, my lifelong love of motorcycles. I'm not sure what happened in the years in between, but I got back into it in my, my 40s.
So what do you have now? And do you just have one? Ivana's got like 5 or something.
Well, I mean, and why though is the question, right? What does a motorcycle represent? What does a drum set represent? It, in many ways, the things we either are drawn to represent something to us, right?
Right.
And to me, the motorcycle or music in that sense represented freedom.
Okay.
Freedom. You could fly. You can, by playing drums, I had the same feeling, riding motorcycles the same way. It's freedom. And so, in the way that's what I use it for, in a sense, it's a way to, break away from all of this and do something where a total concentration, just like music.
Mm-hmm.
You might die, sort of
like music.
Sort of like music. I mean, I've seen Spinal Tap enough to know that as a drummer, I have a higher than normal chance of spontaneously combusting. Right? It could happen.
It could happen.
The chances are not zero. So it could die. And also that it's just, in some ways, it's your own thing. You're out there. So yeah, it represents something to me. It's a lot of fun. I have more than one, I think is the best way to put it. Probably I have more than I should, and probably more than my wife knows about. So let's just leave it at that.
What's your favorite one?
The one I'm riding at the moment.
Okay. Is it like children?
I literally say that as oh, this is my favorite one. And then I'll get another, no, this is my favorite one. And then I'll write like, no, this is definitely the favorite one. And I'm sure that's true of musicians. This guitar, no, right. This is the one. And then you pick up, oh, this is the one. So, yeah.
So being on a motorcycle is kind of like swimming. Like if you're swimming on a team, it's an individual sport, but you're with a group.
Yeah.
Is that what you found with motorcycle riding, or are you more just solitary?
I ride alone. I totally ride alone. Yeah. No, I don't do group rides. I've ridden across the country many times all by myself. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is I just like to be on my own schedule, because everything else in life, especially in my role here, is scheduled to the second sometimes. Yeah. It's to the minute, And that's one of the very few times you can actually just, hey, am I going to do 400 miles today, or am I going to do 600 miles today? It depends, whatever I want. But two, what I've noticed is if you're traveling and you're alone, people will come up and talk to you in a diner, in a gas station. If you're 2 or more, they won't. So I have learned more and had more fantastic interactions with people because they just, hey, nice, but I guess if you're 2 or more, they feel intimidated or something. But I had people come up to me in the strangest places and just start up a conversation. I've been recruited to convert to new religions. It's just, you name it. And I've had those kind of conversations, across the country, and they're wonderful. I've learned a lot. You come back feeling that you got a better sense of where the country's at,
right?
For better or worse. But you certainly get off of the news cycle and the bubble and the media narrowness that isn't really sometimes reflecting what's happening out there really in people's lives. So
Right. Yeah. When I travel for work, I travel by myself, and I will eat at bars,
yeah,
and I'll go sit at the bar because then I don't feel so just by myself. And people will always talk to me. If I go to a bar with someone else and we sit at the same place, then no one will talk. But
yeah,
I have met so many people and talked about things and heard about things that if I didn't travel by myself, I would never know. And
yeah.
it's amazing, and it's wonderful, and it's kind of scary sometimes.
I think the person that captured that most eloquently was Neil Peart in his books about motorcycle travel. And
Uh-huh.
again, he was a celebrity, so he had the added burden of being recognized sometimes. But that in most cases, he had just the most natural one-on-one conversations with no one knowing who he was, and therefore not having that starstruck or you know um, other filter that might have been on had he been coming off stage or something. So
Right.
no, it's just, again, we talk about music, we talk about our ecosystem, our industry, and it really is just a bunch of
Right.
people who have a similar passion, but it always comes down to the people. And so whether, whatever we do in life, I think that's the most important thing to me, especially, and probably to an industry is, do you have a whole bunch of great people around you? Do you have the opportunity to interact and learn from a bunch of great people? And so, like I say, whether it's happening in a gas station in rural Alabama when I met someone that taught me something I didn't know, or is it, at a NAMM show where you're surrounded by the global industry, you're always open to learn, always looking
Right.
for some new insight, right? We're all on a journey here. So,
Right. So I wasn't going to talk about this now, but it seems like the perfect place to segue into it. So let's talk about community. Since I've been working with NAMM, well, first, before all that, I was told I have to say that your daughter, Stephanie Lamond, is the producer of this podcast. I'm trying to be totally transparent. And that also means I know everything about you, but we won't go into all details. So back to this. So since I've known you, you've always talked about being very inclusive with NAMM,
yeah.
and you've been working on bringing the pro audio community in, and everything tech awards, all that seems so central to community and building community, expanding community. So can you tell me what community means to you?
Karen, I don't actually think about it in that way. That's almost the more technical way to approach it. All I know is that there's a lot of different people involved in making this musical ecosystem that we love. And they all are important, and they all are valued, and they should all be together in the same place. So I guess that the result of that is community. But to me,
Mm-hmm.
it's more, kind of simple than that is, whether you're a musician or you work in a studio or you're one of the crew on the tour, or whether you're someone, that invented that instrument, or whether the person that brought it to market or the person that taught that instrument to a young person. You pull one of those elements out of the equation and you no longer have music. So I think that's how I look at it. Is every one of those segments, um, you know, had a essential role. Now, add even another element to it, which is globally. You know, our members in Japan, our members in Russia, our members in South Africa, our members in, you name it around the world. We speak different languages. We have different customs. We have different histories completely. But the music is the one thing that is the glue. So I guess that's maybe glue is the word I would use for community. That without all that, you don't have the ingredients to make what I think is the what we bring to the world, which is music. So it's almost like we needed them. Like if you're forming a band, right? Yeah, we need this, we need that, we need that. Well, we need all those elements to make this work. And now bringing them all together at the NAMM show, first of all, there's the reason to do it. That's, I guess in full disclosure, we do it for us. It's smart business. You bring all
Right.
those people together, you can create a really good event that is valuable and that NAMM as a nonprofit can, produce, raise some money, and then the rest of the year go do all these wonderful things for our vision, which is supporting music education, supporting, young up and coming people in the industry, and basically fulfilling our vision of a more musical world. So it's good business. Start with that. But on top of that, you are creating this kind of future. Put in music educator with a product designer from a major manufacturer. They're going to talk. And or you take someone who's in the theater program and you put them with a lighting engineer from one of the great lighting companies. They're going to talk. They're going to share ideas about what is the pain points, what is needed in the marketplace, what is not there yet. And out of that is going to come a new product idea. And out of that is going to come a new service. Or, those two people might not have ever come in contact with each other. So
Right.
you just multiply that over every segment of the industry, over throwing an artist in there, throwing, a music teacher in there, throwing in each manufacturer, looking at what the others are doing. What's they got over there? That's pretty cool. Let's see how that's going to affect our new product. Kind of like totally benchmarking themselves against everyone else. There's no place you can else do that except the NAMM show. All that combined is like lighting a big old, flare and rocketing this thing forward exponential, and so it's good for the long term too. It's good for business. It's also good for, I think, music, because it creates this, like you said, it's a rocket multiplier that throws this thing into the atmosphere each and every year. You got to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. I guess out of that comes a sense of community, but it's Cheers Bar. It's all it is.
Right.
All the show is supposed to be is Cheers Bar. And for your younger listeners who might be around the age of Stephanie's age, who have no idea what Cheers Bar is, a great TV show based on community where everybody hung out and everybody knew your name. And the theme song was Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And so that had been my vision for the NAMM show since the first day, which was make everybody feel when they walked onto that campus that you were walking into Cheers Bar. And everyone was glad you were there and waved as you walked in the door. That's it. You do that, the rest takes care of itself.
So we were talking a little earlier before I started recording about how earlier in NAMM's history, there were clear paths about who could get in. They had clear roles and it was an easy thing. Now with everything together and that so much overlap, so you've been at NAMM, you've been the CEO and president since 2001, right?
Yeah. So this Sunday is my 20th anniversary.
Okay. So it's a long time.
Yeah.
So how did you go from what you came into to the vision that you have now?
Yeah. This vision isn't really any different than I had at Skip's Music in Sacramento. We always had that same goal of how can we serve our customers. We did that in retail, except you do it every day as they walk in the front door. Then it's an immediacy that's maybe a little different than in a global trade association.
Mm-hmm.
We had programs to create more music makers. That attracted NAMM. I got to work with NAMM on a project called Weekend Warriors that we had developed in Sacramento. Next thing you know, I'm working at NAMM because my predecessor went to work for VH1 Save the Music. 2.5 years later, next thing you know, I'm in this role. It's all kind of accidental in a sense, but it was driven by, first of all, I always felt like we were sort of the up and coming kids, right? We were the kids in the room.
Uh-huh.
And as long as we kept doing things that were, not going to burn the house down, the adults would let us keep playing.
Uh-huh.
I honestly still feel that way. It's like, you look around and go, when are the adults coming back? We still get to keep doing these things. So, but it speaks to the idea of we've got to try new things all the time. That's when you don't know any better, that's what you do. You try different things. Right. And NAMM's been always doing that since 1901, right? I mean, think about how many changes. The early NAMM members, retail members, they didn't deliver products, in overnight FedEx. A lot of pianos were delivered on horse-drawn wagons. Wow. When NAMM first started,
Yeah,
I'd like to order this piano. Okay, we'll have it there, next Tuesday at 3. Well, how will I know you're coming? You'll hear the horse. So, I mean, you find any time in NAMM's history where there wasn't a lot of rapid change, and it's just been a constant. And, we lament the old days when everything was better and everything was sunnier. It's like, no, there's nothing but change. So to your question specifically, I think one of the major impacts of the internet and the globalization of the industry has been the blurring of the lines between who does what, the blurring of the lines. And, we noticed it in many ways, but including where we saw, and maybe my own career was a part of this, someone might work in a music store, and that may be, I guess, their primary job. Wait a minute, they teach guitar in the evenings and the weekends. So are they a teacher? No, they work in retail. Oh, but they're a player, and they also play in bands and maybe actually go on tour once in a while. Okay, are they a retailer? Are they a teacher? Or are they a musician? Oh, wait a minute. They actually do production on the side. And, if they get a call from Todd Rundgren, they're going to go off and do a tour as a production manager. Oh, hold on a second. Are they a retailer? Are they a teacher? Are they a player? Or are they a production manager? Oh, wait a minute. The list goes on, and you realize that's a lot of us.
Right.
It's a lot of people that are listening right now. What do you say you do most? Well, depends on what month it is, maybe. Depends on, what season it is. And so, and by the way, that's a strength. Diversity is an absolute strength. To have skill, it was the samurai code, be knowledgeable in many occupations, and so I think that's actually a really positive thing for the industry. But it's terrible if you have this registration system that says, are you a manufacturer? Are you a distributor? Or are you a retailer? And then your members and customers are sitting there looking at, yes, I do, and then you've got, the distribution changes. There's a lot of manufacturers who are, maybe reaching customers directly now. We've got a lot of retailers who have, become, in the sourcing world and brought in private label. So are they a manufacturer? Are they a retailer? So our reflection of that was, if you make music and sound equipment as your primary income, if you sell music and sound equipment as your primary living, or if you use music and sound equipment in your primary living, you're in this tribe. You're vital, you're a part of it. So we had to reflect that. And that's, if you've seen Crossroads, which is we needed a word. It was a crossroads, we were at a crossroads, this was 07 or 08, around the recession time. We felt the industry was at a crossroads. We wanted to be the crossroads, where everybody globally met. And it's just a great song. So all those things made it a great metaphor for what we were trying to accomplish. But that was what some of you've seen lately when you started coming in with Tech Awards and the other things we've added. It was more of a reflection of the crossroads, which was we needed to do a better job as an organization of welcoming all these parts, and then do that globally, to make sure that as a industry, all of us could move forward and grow and prosper. I mean, the 2020 NAMM show was the largest NAMM show in history on every measure. And then the pandemic hit, but let's not talk about that. But the reflection of that means we had the strongest industry in the history of humankind in 2020.
It's pretty amazing.
Beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
There has never been as robust of a global music products industry and sound industry as there has been as we went into 2020. So now we got to get back. We got to build that back. We've got to commit to building that. But, I guess I take that as a sign that it was working.
Right.
By bringing everyone together, we were actually accomplishing, this kind of vision of bringing everybody forward as a group, everybody thriving. The marketplace is the marketplace, and there's always going to be that competition. But as a overarching industry and vision, we were succeeding and thriving. And I always said that, given where the world was heading, the world needed what we brought to the table more than ever. So the Crossroads plan to me was right. It was correct.
So when you brought in tech, what were you hoping to accomplish by bringing that to NAMM?
Each of these segments, whether it was industry segment like lighting or audio or school band and orchestra or combo, how we have these little segments that are our words for the segments, our descriptions. We felt that if we did a couple of things for them, they would come to our event. One was have a robust trade show floor of all the products they wanted to see. Two, an educational track that would help them all grow and be more successful in their own lives. It's all about, every one of us is all about us, right? We
Right.
wanted to have an education track that would help each individual be more successful, however they chose. And then the third thing we felt to attract them to our events, to shows, were some sort of social networking and or event that drew them to the social side, the community side.
Mm-hmm.
And so we looked at each segment and said, do we have a robust road show for them? Do we have a robust educational track for them? And do we have a gathering spot? Do we have a town square for them to gather in? And we started looking at each of those segments. By the way, I'm actually just laying out our whole competitive strategy. But so for that segment, Tech Awards was the town square for that group.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's why bringing it into NAMM show was completing that. Yeah, we had the great exhibitors for those people. We created great education with tech tracks. First, the hot zone. Remember, it was called the hot zone before it was the tech tracks. But we needed the town square, and the Tech Awards became our town square for that. That's why. And by the way, rinse, repeat on every other segment. And so if you go over to, I'm not even sure what hotel it is now, on one of the, I think it's Thursday nights, you'll see a group called the Piano Travelers. These were a very specific group of the industry that would literally be the road salesmen for pianos back in the day. They still meet.
Wow.
All these years later, and they have their town square at the NAMM show. So yeah, at some point, as things change and the industry continues to evolve, I mean, there'll be at some hotel in 50 years from now, the Tech Awards, and people will say, "Oh, those guys still doing that?" Because there'll be some whole new fancy shiny thing that is now, that everyone moved over here. Who knows how music will be made in 50 years?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the point. And by the way, I looked at the, who would put it together? Probably Hillel. They put some video together. I mean, you probably did, of some of the early tech award highlights. And I remember seeing that online and going, oh, we got to get that. Ooh, we got to get that at the NAMM show, because it was just so cool.
Yeah.
What you had created, it was just so magical in my mind. And we actually just invited the Tech Awards to just use the NAMM platform. And so for the first couple of Tech Awards at NAMM, it was still being done by the original founders, David and Hillel and you and your team. And at some point we just said, look, this is actually kind of a marriage. We should just get married. And it was probably 2 or 3 years in. But I remember at first it was literally, here's the room,
right?
Here's the bill for the labor and all that, the first couple of years. But we realized soon after that, no, this is part of this really fits well. And so we actually made it permanent. So
it's hard to explain to people who haven't been to the Tech Awards what it is and how magical it is. Because, we've tried to get celebrities and they go, there's no press there. It's like, no, but you just got to get in that room. And when they get in the room and see who's there and that whole feel.
But Ed was there. Al was there. I mean,
yeah.
They were there.
Yeah. Yep.
That's it. That was the magic,
yeah.
I mean, there'll be highlights. Yeah. Some of the music was fantastic. Honoring Joni Mitchell was, where do you go from there in a sense, just as far as the feeling of just, royalty. But everyone in my mind, the industry people in that room are the true royalty.
Right. I agree.
Right? And so the highlights for me at Tech Awards are seeing the artists being, tearing up or being just so respectful and thanking the audience for making the gear that allowed them to get, Pete Townsend saying, you allowed me to get what was up here on to tape. And so I guess the world liked it, but he was basically saying, I couldn't have done it without what you invented. So that to me is, that's kind of the end zone there.
Yeah.
Because, some of those clips, and if you should definitely throw the link up on this one for the 35-year collection we put together. It's a, 10-minute video, maybe, plus or minus, but it's hilarious. I mean, it's great. It captures a sense, not a whole thing, but just a little tiny peek into what the tech awards are like. I mean, Father Guido Sarducci. I don't think I would live my life over, but I sure wish I could remix it, you know? I mean, it's just, you know, I don't think I would change my life, but I would like to remix it. I mean, just, you know, there's just, those moments are classic, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what the Tech Awards is. And it needs to continue to grow and evolve like everything else.
Yeah.
Change is good. I don't
Change
think
is
anyone
good.
in our industry would still want to be, you know, recording on the 60s technology or
Yeah.
no change. We have to keep pushing forward, but you do it by remembering also and honoring the people that got you there. So.
Right. So what program or what that you've started or were instrumental in getting going for NAMM are you most proud of? Do you have one?
Sesame Street.
Why don't you talk a little bit about
Sesame
that?
Street Music Works. It was when I was back in market development, and we had a growing body of research, music brain research, linking early music participation with incredible brain development in young people. I mean, like prior to them ever getting into a fourth grade band or orchestra class, which is generally when students are you know, exposed into a traditional music program. And the research was pointing to the development that was occurring much earlier than that. And in a sense, we were missing that. And it was when I was first coming to NAMM. Stephanie and Willie were babies. Stephanie was a toddler. And at some point we were watching a Sesame Street show with Elmo and all that. And I must have been talking to my wife about, you know, this research and how it's really from 3 to 4 to 5. There's this like really, how do we get the word out to parents, you know, about the value of this research so that they should get their kids into music earlier than they would have thought. And I remember it differently. Who knows, Stephanie may remember it differently, but I thought Stephanie said something like, she pointed to the TV and said Sesame Street, basically saying, that's how you reach those people, Dad. That's what we're watching. We're watching Sesame Street at age 3 or 4 or 5. And so I literally went to New York and cold called Sesame Street. I had met Bob McGrath at a lobbying event in DC, and he wrote a name on a piece of paper for me to ask for. And I cold called him. I just walked in the door and said, hey, I'm from NAMM. You know, I'd love to talk to someone about development and we, you know, of new programming. And I think we have some great research for you. And it probably took 3 or 4 trips to New York to get into, you know, not to get escorted out of the lobby, like, who is this guy, you know? But out of that became a multi-million-dollar program within Sesame Street called Sesame Street Music Works. And it was a training module for preschools all over the country. It was an actual program with Elmo as the star. It created material. We went to doctors' offices with these, you know, flyers about get your kids into music and into, you know, the where parents were taking their kids to the doctors and everything. And I thought that was, you know, something we could, as an industry, we could really be proud of, that we might have turned a whole generation of young people on to music earlier than they would have ever traditionally. And because of that, it benefited from the brain development that occurs, you know, when they start playing music earlier. Now the studies we've got totally document that. Second, English learners as a second language are completely better prepared if they have music programs going into kindergarten, first grade. I mean, so many different studies now about how important that was. But, you know, business is business. I love all that, but that was really special. And then ultimately, you know, testifying on Capitol Hill with Elmo for music education funding, you know, it's just, that to me will be probably one of the highlights. You know, when I leave this job and I leave NAMM, that will probably be one of the things I'm most proud of, is that we might have affected, you know, a lot of young people and improved their lives. Stephanie's
It's a great
fault.
story. Yeah.
I give Stephanie credit for it. Like I say, how do you say a 3 or 4-year-old, you know, had the wisdom to say, Dad, if you're looking for a true marketing campaign that would reach the demographic that you're shooting for, I would really shoot for Sesame Street because their ratings are high. No, it was almost like she pointed, and maybe I just remembered it wrong, but it was like, light bulb, Sesame Street. Who reaches? I think at the time it was 10 million households a week or something. It was some astronomical number. This is all pre-cable, or maybe cable, but pre-internet and all that. So that was a delivery system, and they were great to work with, by the way. And they still are fantastic people.
Yeah.
Wonderful people. So.
Let's switch a little and let's talk about your career path. I don't think there is a traditional career path into any of this, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine as a kid you were thinking, "Oh, I want to be the CEO of NAMM."
Yeah.
So, how did you get into it?
It speaks to Crossroads completely. Wanted to be a drummer, moved to California, to join a band and to try and make my, fame and fortune.
Was your family into music at all?
But yeah, very musical family. I
Okay.
mean, there was always piano in the house, always lessons. It was encouraged for sure. It was part of the deal. You had to get good grades and you played music.
Okay.
And so all my siblings play, which is, it was nice. I mean, it was very, very traditional. But this is south of Buffalo, where I grew up. And I loved California, had visited once and I moved out here. But anyway, trying to be a drummer, playing in every possible band you could play in, from, the original writing songs to, I think Tuesday nights I was at Zorba the Greeks playing in a Greek band where I had to accent when the owner picked up the table with his teeth and threw a glass of ouzo in the wall or something, playing every gig I could possibly get, and then worked in music stores because I had to pay the rent. And
Right.
so worked in music stores, started going to NAMM shows in 1983. Yeah, can you imagine this little kid, 21-year-old, walking to the NAMM show in 83 going, yeah, someday. No, I was going to be one of the endorsees walking into that show someday because I was going to be a famous drummer. But retail, did installations, worked for an install company where I did speakers and churches and sound systems and offices. And then played a lot, played with Tommy Two-Tone, played with a bunch of different bands. And then got a call from a friend whose band got hired by Todd Rundgren to be Todd's band for Nearly Human. And I'd just come off the road with Tommy Two-Tone, where I'd also been doing a lot of the production. He said, hey, you want to just do this, but you can't drum. I guess Mike Urbano said, I'm doing, but you want to be the production manager. So I went to, I got hired by Todd on good recommendation from my friend Mike Urbano, and learned production. And that was, again, classic Crossroads. Go back to work at Skip's Music, go on tour, back at Skip's, and then, work my way up at Skip's to executive vice president, thanks to Skip and his mentorship. I had two great mentors then, Todd and Skip. They both taught me about life and mistakes and learning. And, so, and then Skip's was my path. If NAMM hadn't called 23 years ago, I'd still be at Skip's. I was happy as a clam. We lived Northern California. You know how beautiful it is up there.
Yeah.
We just had a beautiful life, but then, I got the opportunity to basically do what I was doing at Skip's, creating programs for new music makers, Weekend Warriors, and working with all the things we were doing to grow the market in Sacramento. I got to take that and do it globally, first nationally and then ultimately globally. So I couldn't turn that one down, but I'd still be there if they hadn't called, because I was happy and doing exactly what I wanted. So this was all a fluke. And I think back to Crossroads, I think a lot of people in our space, a lot of this is accidental in a way. You just, the door opens and you go through it. Then you hopefully do a good job there. Another door opens and you walk through that one. I don't know how many of any of your listeners, your network have a very direct linear path. I would bet most of them do not.
Yeah.
And they just found out that they had a particular skill, particular wiring, and they gravitated to things they were good at. And, and so that's how it happens. But, and I think in an industry wise, that's what I love about our industry. If you have, the passion and, you learn, you can find that there's all kinds of places for you. And it didn't matter who your parents were.
Right.
It didn't matter where you went to college or if you went to college. And it doesn't matter, what kind of a financial break you had coming in. This is open for anybody. It's a true meritocracy, I think, our business is.
Right.
And maybe one of the last. So, that's what I love about it. You can make it what you want. And that's what the NAMM show is about. You walk into that show floor and you realize there's a job called a tour accountant. Oh, there's a job that is, in educational software at Hell Leonard. There's a job that you go, God, what a smorgasbord. What do I particularly feel passionate about and have a natural affinity for and skill? Go, and it's all there for people to see, and they can find their path just by going to the show. They can find where they were meant to be,
Right. So I've done a bunch of programs with students, and most of them want to be engineers and producers, and they don't really understand the breadth of opportunities for them. So, and I work with PAMA, and they're going to schools and talking about all the opportunities in manufacturing. Just because you are studying an engineer doesn't mean you have to play music. You could, or, work with music. You could go, they want engineers to work with manufacturers because they want that skill set. But how do you suggest, and what would you tell students or recent graduates, what should they do? How do they get to the industry? And what should they be looking for?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we encourage, we got almost 4,000 students who are music or music business majors to come to the 2020 NAMM show. And they have their own day and of education, and then they just fan out looking for their thing. So, I mean, there's no better place to see the whole world's ecosystem than there. But I mean, you mentor a lot of people. We've been lucky enough to mentor. We have a whole NAMM YP, Young Professional Mentorship Program at NAMM. And it's as complicated as you want to make it, or it can be as simple as you want to make it. And I'll tell you the simple version. Okay. And again, not to embarrass Stephanie, but I keep using her as an example, because, and we mentor a lot of people around the country too, right? And so depending on where you are, so I use Stephanie example. She did 3 things to get to where she is now, working at the Recording Academy. You could argue she had 3 simple things. 1, after leaving the house, she moved to a place where what she wanted to achieve could happen. She moved to San Francisco. It wasn't going to happen in Vista, California, probably. Right. So the first thing she did was that you have to have the courage to move to where you think what you want to do could happen. That takes a lot of courage. Second thing she did was take whatever job that she could get to be able to stay there. So she worked as a receptionist in a tech company, I think, probably didn't like it at all, but it certainly wasn't what she was gunning for.
Right.
And then having done 1 and 2, she started networking into the community. She volunteered, started teaching at Blue Bear after work, volunteered teaching piano for free. And because of that, met a bunch of people, started networking. She probably connected with, you or Women in Audio. There's some, San Francisco based networking opportunities, especially for young women. And out of that came her job at Blue Bear as a director for Little Bears. Out of that came where she is now. Out of that came recording at Hyde Street Studios, interning at Hyde Street Studios, But those 3 things: 1, move to where it can happen. 2, do whatever it takes to stay there. And 3, just get out and start volunteering, networking, and meeting people, and taking the doors as they open, and have the courage to take those doors. That's good advice for any young person, I think. Yeah. And regardless of whether you want to be in the studio or a producer or design the next piece of great gear, or God love them, I never want to discourage people from their dreams of being a musician. The NAMM show floor is full of people who are still really active musicians, really active and really good players. You never want to give that up. You never, discourage that at all. But, you got to think about it in very practical terms. Move to where it can happen, do whatever it takes to stay there, and then just start networking as much as you can and volunteering and adding value, and you'll see the doors start opening up.
Okay, that's good advice. So you guys had a very successful virtual NAMM this year. You had people from
first one. I mean,
I thought it went well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it didn't crash.
It did crash. You had people from all these different countries.
188 countries.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. This year, 2022, my prediction is you guys are probably going to be the first major trade show back. And I think it's going to be nuts. I think everybody wants to go. I keep hearing people say, I'm so sick. I used to be so sick of NAMM. I can't wait to go. It's like everybody wants to go. So what did you learn doing virtually that you will bring over in your in-person event? Is there anything?
Yeah, no, I think you hit on the first one, which is deeper reach. We picked up 50 different countries that had not traditionally come to a NAMM show. Now, obviously, there's a lot of smaller countries, but they're as vital as anything when it comes to music. I think that's our diversity, our strength.
Right.
So we want to be able to increase our reach geographically around the world. One. Two, we went deeper into the companies beyond those who normally went to the show. So because of the programming, the education, some of the access to new products, a company may bring X number of people to the show to work it or to be there, but they may have 10x back at the home ranch.
Right.
And so they were all able to participate. So we want to be able to go deeper into the companies. Second, and I think the third thing was we really felt that the idea of having these tools, right? The way the app worked, and maybe that's the way we're all getting programmed in our brains. I had multiple screens open the whole time, as I'm sure a lot of people did, 4 or 5 sometimes between live streams, educational sessions, and some of the stuff we were doing even with Herb and I. And I think those who are at the show who use this tool, I really think they'll be like twins or triplets in their own effectiveness. They can be 2 places or 3 places at once. They'll be way more efficient at using their time for education while they're in between meetings or going to meetings. They don't have to be up at a tech tracks. They can actually be watching it while they're on their way to the next meeting. They can be networking because of the connecting and the social aspect of it. They can see if a friend, while they're in Hall A, they'll be able to see if a friend is in Hall E, ping them, hey, let's get together in the front of Hall C so we can have 5 minutes together. You're literally connected to this brain that's everybody's that's there. So I think we want to go, so to recap, around the world, we want to go much, more broadly geographically. 2, we want to go deeper into each company so that they have the benefits more than they would have just for those who come to the show. And 3, we want to make the people who are there become, twice as effective or 3 times as effective with the time they're there. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Sort of what we learned. And, there's a lot of bugs to work out still. And, but I was really, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And, I saw more than I might normally seen. Got to hang out with Herb for, 2 days.
That's an experience right there.
Oh my God, priceless. I mean, in between takes, we'd be sitting there just like laughing and, it's just, there was a lot of community built, and that might've been the toughest thing to build on a virtual platform was
right.
Global live stream, music, artists handing off a song to another artist in a different country live and saying, hey, we're leaving Thailand. We're going to hand it over to our friends in Tokyo, go. And them going, thanks. That's incredible stuff. And then the variety of music that was kind of played. Now, I mean, if really what that did was bring us all back to the kind of, mother root. Why are we doing this again? Oh yeah, it's music.
Right.
And so, the virtual global live stream in particular really helped us kind of ground and anchor ourselves, so anyway, that was fun.
Okay. Last question. I understand you're all about setting goals.
End zones. Yeah, gotta have end zones.
Yeah. So I'm huge in goal setting, huge. So I want to know what goals you have set for the rest of this year, or what goals you have for NAMM for 2022.
Great question. I mean, the work we do in music advocacy right now, I got language on some of the federal education language that's coming down with tens of billions of dollars are now going to be spent to get kids back in the classrooms this fall. And right now we're making sure that our industry realizes that how much of that is going to go towards musical instruments, supportive music programs, new theater programs, new complete equipment setups, sound and lights. We really, as one of my goals is to make sure our industry doesn't miss a minute of this opportunity, because they'll never see it again. We will never see this kind of investment again into what we really care about, which is music education. So, literally working on that at 9 o'clock last night as this language was coming out, specifically calling for this money to be used because of this, social emotional learning that being isolated has created this real epidemic of young people. They're calling out music, art, theater as the place where we're going to be part of the solution with emotional social emotional learning. So that's a real huge deal that we don't miss that opportunity. We got to get 22 show back on back on the rails. If we don't get to do all that stuff, there are no government relations. There are no grants and scholarships to the NAMM Foundation. There is no training professional development with NAMM University. There are no tech awards or tech tracks. That show is the engine that drives all of that. And, as my, one of my mentors, Carl Bruin, used to say, Joe, there are no poor philanthropists. We have to do a good job with the 22 show if we're going to be able to continue all these activities to create a robust industry that we've all, really loved seeing. So, that's kind of it doesn't go, nothing in my goals can really fully be accomplished unless we have a successful 22 show. So, the team here has been fantastic. We've been so lucky. We kept everybody through the pandemic.
That's great.
We've maintained our full operating capacity, and the team is just chomping at the bit to get back to producing these shows. So we're ready. We're going to do it. We've got a period of the industry right now that I've never lived through, which is more demand than supply. For most of our industry, there's more demand from consumer than there is supply in the chain, in the supply chain. So the 22 show is going to be a big part of that. We need to refill that and level that out. And then I think if there's a final goal, it's to get back to live music. It's to get live events functioning fully and safely again, in whatever role we all may play in that, to make sure. Zoom concerts from someone's kitchen were fantastic. I've loved every Muriel Anderson all-star guitar night that she did virtually. I've loved all of your podcasts and all that. We got to get back to live. We got to get back to in-person live events, live concerts, live festivals, and live concerts and conventions and trade shows. So it's getting back live, and how excited we'll be to see each other again. That's a goal.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Any
personal goals you want to reveal?
No. I'm working on something, but I'm not going to tell anybody till I actually see if I stick with it.
Okay, fine.
You never want to get out over your skis, and then someone says, "Yeah, how's that coming? You said you were." Yeah, I kind of dropped it.
Hey, I thought I would try.